So, I hope you are all enjoying the new update as much as I am, because you know what, it is a fantastic, long overdue update, 1.010, weird name for it, I mean, just call it 1.1, you know, in maths, you get taught that you can't have fractions of 0.10, they just, whatever, anyway. You know, game devs do this and why not? But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. I am talking to you about what the new meta is. We know that some decks have been shifted around, some units have been adjusted. And like I say, while I really welcome the update, it has put a spanner in the works for the Americans. The Russian decks are largely unaffected. Actually, I was able to hop on and play a Russian deck with no changes whatsoever. America, however, as you can see, I'm no longer able to do that. Apart from the US new meta deck that I have. Now, you know what? I actually had this deck already. Marines Armored. Marine Special Forces. And it was a lot of fun. But there was one thing lacking in it. And that was some long-range air defense. So yeah, you can see where I'm going with this. And the Patriot 2 is the best American anti-air. And it's been added to the Marines. Basically completing this deck massively. Yeah, you know what, with this little change around, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that this is the new meta deck. You know what, you want the best of everything, right? You want the best armor, you want the best anti-air, you want the best shorad, which is arguably the striker, but you know, you want the best sort of aircraft, the best helicopters, best infantry, and the best recon. And yeah, it's no accident that obviously I click on the Sentinel. And I think this deck has many of the bests in it. It definitely has the best infantry. I mean, these two squads in them on their own, especially the Delta on their own, are the best squads. The best anti-air, we've already talked about, the best recon, the cheapest snipers, the helicopters. I mean, look at this perfect, beautiful selection of helis, and you get so many of them as well. That is worth noting. Obviously, aircraft. We get both F-35s and the F-22. Like, what is not to like in this deck? Well, I understand that it has flaws. And whilst I'm proud of this deck that I've built, I understand that it isn't absolutely perfect. There are limitations, and you have to... A good general should know the limitations of his troops as well as its advantages. So let's break it down and talk about it a little bit more. So, starting off with the Rangers RRC in the Recon tab. Now this squad is absolutely fantastic. You know what, it's a little bit dark. Let me turn up the clock dependent. Let's just put it day, shall we? Apply. Okay, lovely, there we go. Easy to see these boys now. Even though I do like the ambience of the morning setup. Now, Rangers RC, fantastic squad. You want them in the CQB format, not the standoff. The standoff is good because you get the Moors, obviously no extra price. But actually, 484s are great, and these suppressed machine guns do a lot of damage, as well as these rifles. Like 3 damage for a rifle is huge. That is a very good CQB. You obviously get the bonus armor as well. Armor is very, very useful when you have a small squad, which only has 30 HP, obviously 5 per man. So 6 times 5 is 30, there we go. Voila. Yeah, great squad. I've got a lot of good things to say about them. I used to have them in the standoff setup, but the Scar doing 1.35 damage just doesn't cut the butter there. It is kind of not great, and yeah, you do outrange a couple of things, but it's not significant enough for my liking. You have these boys as a CQB squad, for sure. Now, they're brought in by the old trusty little birds, and I don't have too many little birds in this deck in general, just in the infantry tab, because I have an abundance of helicopters. Therefore, yeah, bear with me, the little birds do get cut out a little bit. Pararescue, this is my designated CQB squad, so clearing out buildings. While this is obviously close quarters, it is an AT4 squad. Yeah, very good squad. I can't praise the RRC, which is the Rangers Recon company, for anyone who didn't know, enough. Now, Pararescue, flashbangs, I want these boys to clear out some buildings for me. And they are basically a budget CQB Delta squad, which are fantastic. 4 smokes, that's a lot. 10 armor, 30 HP. They are brought in by this super speedy flyer. Now, in this update, like I said, there's been a few changes, and one of those has been price. A lot of things have gotten slightly cheaper, and yeah, it just makes them a bit more popular with the troops. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't use the Flyer much just because of its paper thin armor. It's been buffed, which I don't agree with. It is a paper thin vehicle. Not even sure if this... Okay, that is an armored windshield, but the sides, yeah, clearly anything can go through these plastic tarps. See-through plastic windows. Now, the autocannon used to be 15, it's now 10. Whilst this is a fantastic option as well, a 50 cal minigun, absolutely rate that, no problems with it whatsoever. You kind of want the autocannon, don't you? Because that can go through 100 mils of armor, of heat armor, which is a lot. That is a lot, to be fair. That's a lot of side armor on Russian vehicles, etc. So this will now work even better, especially considering the slightly cheaper price. The thing is, you don't want these on their own, and I'll talk about that in a second, because look at the amount of speedy vehicles I have down here too. But let's stick on the Recon tab for the time being. Snipers! These are the cheapest snipers, as I mentioned in the game. They are what they are. They're 2-man squad. Laser designators, that's what you use them for. And they're brought in. I just want this lav, just because it's got a Bushmaster and 2 machine guns on it. Still 60 armor. It is basically this, but kind of cheaper. Because it comes with the Bushmaster as a standard. The only thing I've put on it is smoke and extra armor and optics. It's not particularly necessary. For 50 points, that's a lot of bang for your buck. So yeah, 50 points is a very good value for this vehicle. If you want to make it 70, a bit less effective, but I think it's worth it for the smoke. These guys only get 1 smoke as well, and no machine guns, but obviously the Bushmaster 2, which does a bit more damage and is more accurate. So yeah, that is a decision for you to make about whether you want a lot of these guys or lots of these guys instead. These guys obviously have the bonus advantage of carrying 13 men as opposed to 6 here. But this has higher health too, so yeah, and their performance is kind of identical. This gets a lot more visibility as well, because obviously it's a Recon vehicle. Like I said, I quite like these lavs. I wish I could have 2 of them. I think they'd be better in a pair, but that's how the cookie crumbles. I can't afford it. Now, this is something that these 2 vehicles I will talk about in a second. Let me first, because they're not purely reconnaissance, they're more fighting vehicles for me and how I will be using them. So let's talk about this drone. Obviously it's the best drone in the game, there are no doubts about it. It is stealthy, 1.75, doesn't seem like much, but it goes a long way. It works brilliantly, doesn't get shot down that often, just because people don't spot it as often. You obviously don't want it too close to the front line. Great range, great vehicle, good little drone. It's also one of the it is the fastest drone with a speed of 540, so it gets to the front line a lot quicker than all the others. Look at this, 360, slow AF, dude. Right, this drone is for the Hellfires. I mean, yeah, that's a lot of Hellfires for quite a cheap price. And of course, the only purpose of this little drone is if you get an overwhelming Soviet tank rush, you absolutely call this bad boy in, and he will clean up some Russian armor for you with all these Hellfires. So yeah, for 135 points, that's a lot of damage that it could potentially do. Of course, it is super slow, so it is only if a Russian armor breakthrough goes quite deep. But essentially, that's what I have it as. Just a bit of insurance and an opportunity. Clearly, it's very weak, and Russian AA will shoot it down no problem. Let's talk about my infantry now. Oh, actually, let's talk about the other honorable sort of measures that you could have. As you can see, most of these guys are in. Rangers in this configuration get 284s, which makes them pretty good at ambushing, but ultimately they're still a pretty weak squad, so it's not worth it. Green Berets, they are also a fantastic squad, but only super useful in very specific scenarios. They're not that good in the 80-point setup with the Punisher. They get a bit expensive with the Flash, even though the Flash is fantastic and will rip apart most squads at close range, within 200 meters especially. And you definitely don't want them in the sniper configuration, because that is just way too expensive, and yeah, not that great. 4.3 damage on the 50. What's this one? Oh, 4.32. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is great, but it's just not worth it. You don't even get a smoke, so this team becomes very very super duper weak for trying to deliver so much firepower, and only 2 of your rifles can shoot above a kilometer. Force Recon, I do like these guys. They're very good. They're not too great at CQB. If you have them in the CQB format, then they are much better, but again, they're just kind of, you know, very specific usage. They lose their laser designation capability. Sorry, they don't have it anyway. Neither they do the RRC, to be fair, but basically, if your choice is between this guy, these guys, or these guys, and Rangers RC, by the way, have 10 extra health for better firepower, so yeah, it's a no-brainer for me. AT4s are also way better than these thermobaric or HE rounds, so yeah, Rangers RC are your boys, and these snipers are just more expensive than the scout snipers because of the extra man and the extra capability that they have. So there we go. I do think it is a no-brainer for the Recon tab. Like I said, I'll talk about these guys in a second, but you can see that they are basically the launcher option, the ATGM option, because the Infantry tab does not have it. And that is a deliberate choice, because, again, think about it. The Infantry tab has got an abundance of rocket launchers, RPGs. Look, the Marines have got 6 AT4s, winner, winner, chicken dinner. The Raws are fantastic. I keep them in the cheaper setup because I like the cheaper setup. I think with the cheaper setup, you can afford more of them. I don't think the Carl Gustav's M4s are that much better. They have better penetration, but the damage is the same. You just want more rounds downrange, which means the cheaper setup is the way forward. Because again, we have a lot of bazookas here, so you don't need super expensive bazookas in the mix. Quantity does work. Right, so the Infantry tab in more detail. The only thing that can really bring in javelins are either these, super expensive, not great range, and javelins, in all fairness to them, they don't have the same sort of tracking as Hellfires, so when an enemy smokes, sometimes, you know, Hellfires will kill through the smoke. Javelins, not so much, they just miss. They miss a lot, and that is unfortunate. 125 points, you don't need the 50 cal and the machine gun for the sports. It's a decent squad, but by the way, the Dragon 3, awful. Do not use it, even though it does more damage and has the same amount of penetration. 1,000 range, even though you get 2 of them, they're pretty useless. Just don't use them, guys. S'mores, they are fantastic. Sorry, let me finish talking about the long-range missiles, the ATGMs. The other option is the TOW, which, again, 100 points for 1 TOW is expensive. You can get 2 of them on the back of these vehicles. You can upgrade it to be top attack, giving it the slightly bigger edge of better penetration from above, and you're welcome to do that, but it becomes 130 points. Again, that is super expensive for a missile. Very expensive indeed. And your final option is to have the Rangers in the Javelin top attack missile, which is the better Javelin with the 1,500 range. It does seem to hit a bit better, but obviously you lose your Stinger teams, which I'm not willing to do. Of course, the other option is to get your Pararescue in the Special Tactics configuration. They have a Stinger, they have a machine gun. It's all well and good, but I think it's a bit too expensive for what it is. I would rather have them as the room clearing door kicker squad that they actually do better at. And again, 4 smokes, whereas this is only 1, but you do get laser designation, which is actually, you know, something to really consider. That is a good feature that I only just remembered that they have, which I've done before, just had them shooting down planes and also laser designating stuff. But let's be real, if your Stingers get spotted, they will get killed. Right, the other good thing about these Stingers is the fact they get 2 machine guns. And these machine guns rip infantry and vehicles apart because they're 8.6 caliber. That's basically bordering on a heavy machine gun. Look at the size of this thing. It's a big boy gun. I think it's the only weapon that has 8.6 caliber in the game, but whatever. Right, let's talk about the rest of my infantry. Oh, sorry, one more quick note. The lack of, you know, handheld ATGMs is the fact that you've also got a LAV AT in this configuration. The Marines bring it, and this can be put in the top attack version, giving it the edge. But again, I think it's better to have cheaper, more of it. The worst thing about this TOW is the fact that it is one shot. With 8 health, it is pretty cheap. It is very easy to die. it is very easy to kill as well, and that is the sort of downside of it. But for 55 points and for that amazing speed, you really can't go wrong. On the note of that amazing speed, it actually, as well, I've got this pretty deep into enemy lines. Like, obviously, if a helicopter spots it, it's dead. But again, for 55 points, do you care? Not really. Yeah, for 55 points, for that amazing speed, I've killed actually quite a few of Tors and S300s with it as well. Like I said, I was using this deck before it's become the meta, but the Patriot has definitely made it the meta. This is for the Javelin, the better Javelin, with the increased range, obviously 50 with a 50 sniper on it. You only get 3, which is a shame, but it is still quite a fast, nippy vehicle. You do want the armor on it because, again, it lacks smoke, so you do make it a bit more survivable with these cages out in front of it, these nets. So yeah, I was thinking, you know, toying up between having more of these and just none of these, but you know what, I want to try these out. I want to give them a chance. I don't think many people use them, but you know, decent armor, decent health, unlike this guy. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes indeed. Also, these get 6 missiles, whereas infantry squads only get 4. So yeah, four missiles versus 6, I'd rather have these. By the way, before Russians turn around, Russian tanks fire their 1,680 GMs out their cannons. Usually you'll have a couple of these guys, so the Russians will be forced to smoke out and they won't be able to shoot back at you, which is also another win for the IFA veto. Infantry, like I said, there is an abundance of RPGs. Look at these guys. S'mores, I love them. I love them. Very great team. Great guys. Absolutely great guys. Some say they're not great guys, but they're great guys. Terrible Trump impression, sorry for that. But the fact that they've got thermobaric shells, rockets in them, it's just fantastic. They rip apart infantry. They act as a sort of force multiplier. 8-man squad, if you stick them in with the Marines, you're going to do a lot of damage together. So 8 plus 13, 21. Oh look, they've upped this to 21 as well, so you can take both of them in there and some supply at the same time. Again, I'll talk about this in a sec, but this is a fan-fucking-tastic vehicle. Right, ACV 30. We just touched upon this. It's got decent firepower, decent armor. It is what it is. You can have this as a very cheap, good armored troop ferry. But again, this guy does the job a lot better. Mark 47s. Now, Mark 47s. What a beautiful piece of weaponry. These are phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal, because not only do they obviously work against infantry, they also have a higher magazine capacity than other grenade launchers. They rip apart helicopters. One of these squads, I've literally had one of these guys just running around the back lines in likely routes of enemy helicopters, and they just rip them apart. Literally, by the time they get discovered by the Mi-24s, etc., they are engaging them with dual grenade launchers, and they will rip them apart. No doubt about it. I've literally had these guys rip apart 3 helicopters on their own, unsupported. Brilliant. And this is also the reason that I've put them on the mark on the RSOVs, because you know how I was saying about my speedy little runs that I like to do? This deck, by the way, I should mention, is fantastic for flanking, which is something I love a lot. It's not great for support players, but fuck support players. Don't be a pure support player. That is awful. This is how you win. You do a lot of flanking in this. RSOVs are the perfect vehicle for that. These support them perfectly because they will help you take out helicopters a bit quicker. These are great for supporting them as well. Bit of extra firepower, as are these, and as are the Lavs with their speedy anti-helicopter support. So yeah, really, really great for flanking and doing speedy little runs along the sides. Also great for getting your troops into combat quickly. The helicopter support is also fantastic, so yeah, as is the air support. It's the perfect deck. Anyway, yeah, Raws, like we've already talked about, I prefer more of them, so whilst you do lose a bit of damage, a bit of penetration, and a tiny bit of range, that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make for the price. Stingers, already talked about, brilliant. Here we go, little birds, some more little birds into the mix. Marines, hoorah, big boy squad, 8 armor, 65 health. Brilliant. They do a lot of damage, they work well. No machine guns is the shame, because machine guns do have a good little suppressing effect. You don't really want them in this setup because you want the 684s. Yeah, even though you do get, obviously, 3 machine guns here, which is, yeah, I wish they'd just take out one of these or one bazooka and just give it 1 machine gun instead, but here we go. That's how the cookie crumbles. Now, Marine Raiders, they are a 14-man squad, 10 armor, 70 health. What a tanky squad. It can take a lot of damage. I wish I had an extra smoke. That would make it even better. Your choice is the standoff for the more expensive price or the close quarters. Keep the close quarters, you get the launchers, you get the these thumpers, you get the shotguns, and you get these amazing 8 CQB rifles. They're going to do a lot of damage, they're going to kill a lot of infantry. Now the reason I never used to use the Marine Raiders, because basically you can fit them in anything apart from a big helicopter, a big transport helicopter like the Chinook here, or an AAVP, which would be slow AF. Look at this AAVP, 70 kilometers an hour. I mean, whoa, 55 kilometer off-road speed, that's pretty good. Yeah, good vehicle, good firepower on it, but it's just super weak and super slow. So what's the point? You may as well have a transport like the MTVR to bring them in. So this is how I used to bring them in, or by helicopter, but again, I just didn't really use them. Now, bringing them in a super speedy helicopter like the Silent Hawk with the update, they now have 14 seats, makes them a lot more appealing, I would say. So yeah, Marine Raiders can now fit in a Silent Hawk, which means that I'm going to try and test it out and see how they work. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm quite optimistic that it will work pretty well at clearing out infantry. Now, Delta Force, on the other hand, are in the standoff edition, because look at that range, 600, 700. These machine guns rip apart infantry. The Fletcher does good damage. By the way, another update is the fact that they've put in smoke trails for this. It's just great. This squad is fantastic. I love the night vision that they have. Looks very Gucci, very alley, very amazing indeed. Close quarters, even better. These work in close quarters fantastically well, especially with the flashbangs. But yeah, I'd rather the standoff edition, especially because the Marines here are in the yeah, CQB format. Plus, cheaper, no difference in price. Now, the Deltas are really great. They are brought in by the Silent Hawk as well, but with a 12-man squad, you can bring them most other helicopters and most of the transports, like the ACV as well. So yeah, there we go. ACVs work really well there. I wish they had 14 men in them. They'd make them even better, but there we go. Yeah, as well, with the 13-man carrying capacity, you can get 2 of these, or 2 of these, or 2 of these, because they're all 6-man squads, which is just brilliant. You can also get, well, obviously, a 7 or a 9-man squad in there with a 4-man squad, but basically, like, you know, a big squad, like troopers with snipers in or something like that. But yeah, that's not particularly necessary in this deck. The strikers, a lot of people are saying that the Marine strikers are the new meta. I disagree. I don't think it's there's not been that many changes, and again, you don't get the pack 2, and the pack 2 is kind of what it's all about. Now, and obviously you lack serious armor, which is what the Marines, the Marines do bring serious armor. So if you're talking about anything other than Armored Brigade, these are the only guys who have decent tanks. Now let's have a look at the armored deck. These tanks are great. I've put a jammer on these, and you know what? 30% ECM does actually work really well. For 220 points, it's a lot of firepower. Lack of armor, but decent health still. This can go head-to-head with a T90, which is 230 points, by the way. But it does have an autoloader, so it will reload quicker. Unfortunately for the Americans, 6 to 7 seconds is a bit painful. Despite the really good penetration, another thing that's been buffed with these tanks is its damage for the heat shells. Now, the heat shells, of course, used to not do as much damage, which would mean that BMPs would take 3 bloody hits, which would be really painful. Light vehicles, even the Humvee taking 2 hits by tanks annoys me personally, but 3 hits to destroy BMP was just really irritating, so I'm glad they've done that. They haven't buffed up the Russian tanks damage though, which is crazy because Russian shells are slightly bigger, so yeah, they should do that. Russian shells are 125 mils, American shells, NATO shells are 120. So you would expect the explosive damage to be higher, but alas, they've not done it, which is a shame, because I've also noticed that not the lavs, but strikers in particular could take 3 hits with being on 1 HP, like 2 hits and leaving them on 1 HP, which is incredibly frustrating. Lavs, they, you know, they don't survive as much, so yeah, that's fine. Right, the tanks here, so I can only afford, basically because I want these guys, if you want to get an extra one of these, you need to kill 4 other vehicles off, which I'm not willing to do, because I also love these, by the way. They are so funny and so great to use. But yeah, here's your other serious firepower with better armor. You could take 2 of these, 1 of these instead, but I think for the price, I'm quite happy having 220 point tanks. I am in the cheaper is better category, so yeah, don't knock me for that. Obviously, I've stuck the APS, the trophy, on here. Yeah, good capable tank, 500 penetration, that's really good. 12 damage on its HE shell, which is also really good, so yeah. Very good vehicle. You could have 2 of these and cut some of these out instead, but this is how I'm going to run it. Like I said, I have an abundance of 80 gems and close range RPGs in this deck, so I'm not sure that I don't desperately need tanks, if you know what I mean. Now, these tanks, oh my god, they are hilarious and so much fun to use. Now, you absolutely don't want them in this format. It's just a weak, weird vehicle, very slow. You do want them in this meme format for this derpy little 165mm gun. And the reason you want that is in a pair, by the way, minimum. Ideally, you could actually have them in a 4, which would make it more fun, because they do clear out CQB. Yeah, they clear out quite a lot of infantry and buildings by collapsing the buildings with this humongous cannon. It one-shots a lot of vehicles. You know, with 300 penetration, that's still pretty decent. That can go through most side armor. It can also one-shot a lot of tanks because of that very reason. If you get this shooting into the side armor of a tank, it could one-shot it. 17 damage, that will delete most BMPs with 1 shot. It will also delete a lot of squads, or at least do a huge amount of damage to squads out in the open. Backed up by 50 and an M240, it's a great vehicle. Do not overlook this because it's got weak armor, and the fact that it's slow AF does make it a bit frustrating, but hey, 2 smokes as well, that's pretty decent. 16 health, pretty decent. I love these things. These are hilarious and I use them a lot. Love ATs, again, we've already touched about this, but a just more survivable version of this guy. For 25 more points, pretty good. But again, I need the tanks and I need these meme tanks in as well, so I can't afford to bring more of these and less of these. These are cheap, you do them for the flanky stuff, these are more for the serious holding positions stuff. And they can also swim, which is a win, because yeah, swimming is fun. Right, support tab, very limited support tab, very few points. I've maxed it out. It's very limited because, like, I really want a mill click in here. I do want a mortar for smokes, but I cannot afford. And yeah, the reason is because you need your labs and you need your MTVRs. We've discussed this. Obviously, you need your land-based supply. This is honestly a beautiful vehicle. I love the MTVR so much. I'd have more of them if I could. I used to have 4 and 4, but obviously the Patriot has yeah, meant that is no longer possible. The Patriot is fantastic. You have to have it in the 4 missile setup. You should have it in the B-kit armor, because if there's any counter battery, then it is just a tiny bit more survivable. So yeah, do put the extra B-kit armor on. It's only 5 points. Labs are great. They rip apart helicopters. That minigun actually is fantastic. It rips apart helicopters and infantry and light vehicles pretty effectively. So yeah, especially when you have 2 of them together, that's unstoppable. 3 of them is even better. Like I said, I wish I could have 4, but I can't afford that. So yeah, that's a shame. They have a smoke, weak armor, decent health points. They're pretty survivable. They're pretty good. Also, they conveniently just fit into Chinook. So here we go. Here's a Chinook, 12,500, 12,500 weight. So yeah, perfect. Win, 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 win. This, ironically, cannot be fit into Chinook, whereas this can. And I think that nicely leads us onto a helicopter tab. So the new meta helicopter deck is fantastic. You know what? I've always liked the marine helicopters. They're overlooked, but the thing is their price makes them so appealing. 135 points for this is just insane, dude. And it looks beautiful. Look at this heli. It is gorgeous. Also, 20 mil chain gun is fantastic too. So yeah, do not overlook these American marine helicopters, even though they're nowhere near as good as the Apache 1-to-1. The thing is, they're cheap, so you get a lot more out of these. So for 3 of these, with a lot of firepower, cost the same as 1 Guardian decked out with Hellfires. So I know what I'd rather have. I'd rather have 3 helicopters, because obviously that's way more targets that the Tor has to shoot at, or the Panzer. Let's go over these. So the Chinook is obviously my big lifter. He will bring in a lav to the front of the battlefield in no time. A lot of supply and a lot of squads as well. 15 ECM, 20 armor as well, and 32 seating capacity. And its speed. Now, a lot of people say you can have the Osprey for its a very impressive speed. It goes faster than some planes, just almost the same speed as a Harrier. Yeah, I do love the Osprey. I have no room to squeeze it in here, but I do love the Osprey. Unfortunately, though, it's kind of like, you know, once it's discovered, it will get shot down because it's only 10 and 10 ECM. King Stallion, similarly, is quicker, 315. It can actually carry more, so you could get a lav and something else in the back of it, so like some squads. And it is very tempting to have this guy instead, but unfortunately, the 10% ECM, the 10 armor, doesn't make it as survivable as the Chinook. So this is why we've gone for the Chinook instead. Yeah, I just love Chinooks. I've been in them. They're actually super cramped on the inside. It's way, like, look how cramped it looks with just 4 men in. When you have guys inside, 32 men, that is a very tightly packed can of sardines. Yeah, it's very cramped. I am 6'2". I can't stand up straight. I can just... my head touches the ceiling if I stand up straight in the back of a Chinook. It's a lot more cramped than it looks, despite being a big, beefy boy. Obviously, I've not been in one of these because it's American, or the British use Chinooks as well. But anyway, killer eggs. Obviously, you got to have your killer eggs. They are fantastic for taking out some infantry with the improved miniguns. Here's another thing. I forgot to mention that I have put miniguns on this for the sake of 5 points, because they, as the game devs themselves have put, they've been buffed. And they're now the equivalent of 2 machine guns. So essentially, this thing has 4 machine guns per side. You could have this, but I don't think it's worth it. Just stick to your miniguns. Miniguns are fantastic now. They've been buffed, and they get an extra range, which is also really good, and extra damage. And they've lost that cluster effect, which nobody really understood anyway. Now, yeah, these are great miniguns. These are great. The Zuni rockets are fantastic. I'm so glad they've been added to the Super Cobra. I was using the Super Cobra with Hydras, but I'm so glad that I can use them with Zunis now. This, for me, is a super cheap anti-tank helicopter. 135 points, bear in mind, is fantastic. You still get tows, which are still decent, you know, especially if you shoot a tank in the side or the back, which is obviously a lot easier to do in a helicopter, then you will do a lot of damage. You don't really need Hellfires at that point, because a smoke will still block the rocket anyway, so the guided missile anyway. So yeah, you just want cheap and quantity, which is again something that I love. 3 of these instead of 1 Guardian. I will take 3 of these all day long. Now they're backed up by the Viper, and again, I love the paint scheme on it. Nice little Viper that the crew has drawn on. And the reason I bring these guys in is for their sidearm, because you want these guys going in front. If any Tors or Panzer switch their radar on, as they tend to do when they see a flock of helicopters, these things will clap them quicker than the tow or the Hellfire. So yeah, you do want the sidearms for sure. I could put on Hellfires on this, which is definitely a good option. By the way, this helicopter deck is so fantastic, so versatile. So you have so many good options that you can do this. The problem with these Hellfires are they're not fire and forgets. They are semi-active, which is not ideal, but it does mean that if the Russians smoke, it's not going to get through, so I don't like that. Whereas these guys, Oh, they're semi-active too? God damn it. Okay, well, you've lost your fire and forget missile capability in this deck. Are these fire and forget? No, semi-active as well. Okay, that's a shame. That is something I've overlooked here. But okay. Well, the cat's out the bag. I've got the Hellfires here. So yeah, for this DAP, I love it by the way. The DAP on its own, it's worth it just for the dual 30mm cannons, because if you put this behind a tank or behind any vehicle in its rear, it will rip it apart. The dual 30s will rip it apart, absolutely. Take my word for it, they work really well. But yeah, I just thought, you know, for 60 points, why not stick some Hellfires on it as well? It doesn't make it that much more expensive, and again, you can bring 3 of these bad boys in, making them very, very fantastic for 25% ECM. That's incredible. That's why I love the MH60 SAW family. Right, yeah, beautiful helicopter here. Again, I've stuck the miniguns on it because, oh, another thing I should mention is if you get your Chinook within 700 meters of any helicopter, it will do a huge amount of damage. If it's any lightly armored Russian helicopter, it will shoot it down. If it's like Ka-52, it will at least, you know, cripple it. It will put its yeah, it will damage it a lot and potentially shoot it down, especially if you're backed up by killer eggs. So there we go. Pro tip from Lima there: stick miniguns on all your helicopters. Right, yeah, this is the transport helicopter. It is for the 4,000 supply and 13 men, which, by the way, conveniently can now fit a Marine squad in. So hoorah! Let's go. Not sure how you get 13 men in the back. Again, it's going to be cramped AF. Probably 2 guys sitting on each side, hanging their legs down, as you see in the films, as you see in Black Hawk Down. But yeah, the Venom is a super. It's not cheap, and it doesn't bring as many men. The reason I have this is for a cheap attack helicopter, because again, if you want to do a cheeky little flanky, by the way, great paint scheme. If you want to do a cheeky, beaky, sneaky beaky little flanky, then this guy is your man. 14 rockets of guided hydras, so they will kill S-300s, etc. in the back lines. They will kill RT in the back lines. When you're doing a flank, more is more. Quantity does matter, because Russian AAA, Russian Shorad is fantastic. It will shoot your stuff down. So the more you have with all that ECM, the more misses and the more time you have to kill Russian RT, etc. in their back lines. So there we go, a very fantastic helicopter selection. Now, I haven't got a Comanche in, which is obviously an honourable mention. I do like the Comanche. It is good for flanky stuff, but like we said, cheaper is better, so I'd rather have these guys instead. The other thing is the fact that the Comanche is super weak. So for its price and for its ECM, it's pretty weak. Once it is discovered, despite having really good stealth, the stealth is fantastic, but if you've got a formation of helicopters, these are going to get like spotted anyway. So if you're doing a mass helicopter flank, there's no point in having all this stealth, is there really? And the thing is, the game's been updated so that once the Hellfires fire, this becomes easier to spot. So you don't really want it in that setup either. 170 points, yeah, no, I'd rather have this with the higher ECM, because its stats, its health and armor are the same, so I would much rather have the higher ECM. Like I said, most of these helicopters, their speed is around 300, which is why, apart from the killer egg obviously lags behind a bit, which is why I don't mind having the Chinook as 290, because if I've got the Chinook for whatever reason come in that big blob of helicopters, I don't want this to race ahead like the King Stallion or the Osprey will do. So yeah, there we go. That's the reasoning for me having a Chinook there. Super Stallion's pretty cool too. Yeah, also a worthy contender, but I just like Chinooks. There we go. Great helicopter selection, absolutely love it. Now, an even better air selection. This one is even more subjective than the one I've got. So this one is absolutely, listen to what I've got to say, but make it your own, because there are so many options for you in this deck, so many fantastic options. Like, I really hate the new icons they've made for some of the aircraft, especially for the Russian. Wait, let me just go off topic for a second and show you the new Russian plane icons. They look so silly. That looks like a retarded owl. Yeah, why have they done that? I am not sure. This looks super redonkulous, mate. Absolutely redonkulous. That is the worst logo of any unit in the game. SU-25 is the only one that actually looks... I mean, it looks like a Harrier, to be honest, but anyway. Yeah, super silly, but pretty funny. Let's talk about these aircraft here. So F-35, no secret, you want this to take out Russian S-300s, and Russian Arty and Shorad and supply, because one of these will pop supply, uninterceptable, brilliant. And these things will get through anti-air 90% of the time to drop their payload. And also, I'd say 90% through to deliver the payload, and it's probably like 65 survivability to withdraw from the battlefield as well. For 320 points, you can target 4 targets, or maybe 3 targets and 2 sets of supply. You have to be on it with marking the map for remembering where the smoke trails were firing from, but ultimately this just works and it is fantastic. Yeah, you want 2 bombs per target, per hard target, or 1 bomb, 1 smart bomb per soft target, like supply. And they work fantastically well, really, really well. I've had so much success with these. An option is to have 2 of these in the deck, but I find 1 is enough. So actually the nerf that some people say from having 4 to 2 limit is not really a concern for me, because I don't need to take max 2 of these in the deck anyway, so yeah, whatever, don't really care. The Prowlers, these are great because obviously Seed, hello Seed, fantastic stuff. Yeah, Seed is great, and yeah, the Prowlers are better than the F-16 anyway for Seed, so yeah, I do love the Prowlers. That is another silly looking logo, but essentially I've got these for my cluster, so my cluster plane. Like I said, I don't really like to mix and match too much unless you have the Su-34, for example. 300 points is a lot, so I only have one of these for desperate situations when I see a big Russian blob. 10% ECM, pretty decent speed, so low altitude drop. I'm pretty sure this will be kind of survivable, just like the Su-34 is as well. The Su-34, by the way, only has 5 ECM as standard, so yeah, hopefully this will be more survivable. I haven't had too much testing with it. Now, again, if you see a big Russian blob deep in your lines, the Harrier is also a really good option because it has got 4 Mavericks. Winner-bunga, dude. Winner-bunga. So 4 Mavericks is pretty much almost guaranteed to kill 4 tanks. Or if the Russians smoke off, it'll kill some vehicles in the background. But yeah, this is really, really cool. I do love the Harrier, I do love the Mavericks, and I've put sidearms on it. Anti-radiation missiles, which used to be 4 kilometers effective range, they're now 5. Somebody fact-checked me. I'm pretty sure I'm accurate. I'm right in that, but I'm not 100% sure. They are slow, which is their drawback. Big drawback for being super duper slow, unfortunately. But yeah, whatever. I've put ECM on it just because I don't want it to get shot down as it pops up to do its strafing run to drop the Mavericks. So hopefully this will get through a lot more. When you don't have the ECM, it will get shot down, guaranteed, especially if you're throwing this thing deeper into the Russian positions. I've got 2 firebombs. Again, this is just kind of for fun to play around with. I don't think I'll use this that much, but 2 snake eyes as well. So 4 firebombs, 2 snake eyes. Yeah, just to try and, you know, give Russia a taste of its own medicine more than anything. Again, I don't know how much I'll be using this, but if I do use this, obviously it'll be a low altitude drop, making this thing a bit more survivable on delivering the payload. Withdrawing, I don't think it will withdraw, but it's 200 points, and I'm not too bothered about that. We'll see. It's just for a bit of fun, a bit of experimentation. The reason I put snake eyes on is because that can shock the Russian infantry to prevent it running away from the firebombs. 2 of these guys because I'd ideally like to bring them in together just to increase their survivability and damage output. F-35B, this is my cheap fighter. So F-22 Raptor is my air superiority fighter, brilliant, and this is the cheap fighter that can support it with 4 AMRAAMs. Yeah, again, I'm testing this because I didn't really... I wish I could put Sidewinders on this instead, but you can't, so this is a test. Another option for a cheap fighter is the Hornet. AIM 7s have had a buff. that they fire at the same time pretty much, or in quicker succession. So yeah, they're worth bringing in now because they are cheap. So yeah, you can do this and this, and you get and this, and you get 4 missiles that can in theory fire at the same time, which is really good. The gunslinger is the AIM 174 is really painfully slow. It's like, oh, has that been buffed? Oh, hello. Okay, the sparrows are slow as well. Let me just... Okay, they are not painfully slow anymore. I think that is a buff. I could be wrong, but essentially that makes this a budget F-22 Raptor with no stealth and lower ECM. So yeah, you could have this as a cheap fighter. It's not actually that cheap for 335 points, but you can obviously cut some stuff out of it to make it cheaper. Voila, 4 sidewinders. Okay, maybe not. There we go. Yeah, no, it's still not that cheap at all. So either way, it's cheaper than the Raptor, but so is the F-35B, which is why I'm trying this thing out. Also, this annoyingly doesn't get the high speed. Neither does this, but we'll see how it goes. For the stealth, I'm keeping this boy. Another honorable mention is the B-2 Spirit. Obviously, if you want a nuke, this is your guy. It will deliver the payload. It won't withdraw, but it will deliver. I actually quite like these. These are what you can call mini nukes. They do a lot of damage, and they have quite a decent blast radius. 260 meters, that is huge. Yeah, and it's cheaper because, like I said, I think this thing gets shot down on its withdrawal quite a lot. So you don't want to feed Russians 1,000 points. So if you want to use a nuke or big boy bombs, use it like this. You know what? I've used this setup as well, 2,000 pounders. Carpet bombing is fun, and this works really well. You don't need the smart bombs at all, really. So yeah, just have these guys on it. You could have this as well for the clusters, but again, I mean, these are good clusters. They do a lot of damage, and when you drop down 16 of them, that is quite significant, but I just like these big boys. Another honorable mention is the F-117 Nighthawk, not for its cruise missiles. I don't ever use these cruise missiles, but for the super cheap Stormbreaker. Now, it's not very survivable. It's super duper slow. The ECM makes it a bit survivable. It does have a laser designator on it, so Stormbreakers, you can give them a go. It does have stealth. You can give it a go, dropping it in around a big wide flank and into the back of Russian S-300s and RT. And I've had it work before, but it's just these things are so slow that once they're discovered by fighters, you know, just by chance, they will get shot down. So that is the big shame. Whereas this guy will get through, like I say, 90% of the time, no problemo. Another great honorable mention is this AC-130 inbound. Spooky dooky. Halloween's coming up. Right, cool. You know what? If you deck this out, this thing actually, it does a good amount of damage. It's also really good fun to use. You can also have it a lot cheaper by taking out these HE missiles, which shoot from the rear anyway, so you might get shot down before you even get anywhere near it. But yeah, you stick Hellfires on for 30 points. Very cheap. It's very, very cheap indeed. It also, of course, has these big boy cannons that can do a decent amount of damage. It's not fantastic. The accuracy isn't as good as it should be. But these things, the spookies are great, right? If they work amazingly well. If they don't work, they work disastrously. So yeah, I wish I had space to put one in, but I just don't. I need all of these guys. I suppose arguably I could take out the firebomb instead, but yeah, I don't know. I'm quite happy with just trying this out. Like I say, this is such a fantastic deck. So many options. If you're gonna have a para-dropping plane, you obviously want this guy for the 20% ECM, just so that it can safely arrive and deliver its cargo before getting shot down. It will get shot down after you drop, but yeah. 20% ECM means there's a decent chance that you will get to drop, as long as it's not too deep into the enemy positions. If you want to drop deep, C-17's your guy for that, because it does have decent speed. And there we go. This is the deck we have. It is fantastic for frontline fighting. It is fantastic for close quarters, very fantastic for that. It is fantastic for flanking, something that I do love so much. Obviously, you guys know I love the Lima special. Fantastic helicopter selection, fantastic aircraft selection. I really do not have any flaws with the deck. The flaw used to be the Patriot and the fact that, you know, you can bring some of these squads in conventional transport. But now you don't have that issue anymore. And yeah, these helicopters are fantastic. I used to have a Guardian in this deck, but I think that was unwise because it was sucking out too many points, and I'm actually very comfortable having these guys in nowadays instead. So there we go. There you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you realize that this is just a guide, you know? I think it's a very good guide, but it's still a guide. Feel free to change up stuff to suit your preferences. For example, if you don't want these derpy tanks, which again are hilarious, you should use them, they're fun. Or these, and if you do want to put javelins on, you know, the Rangers, you're more than welcome to do so, but I just think that this selection works the best. But again, it is up to you to find out whether you agree or disagree with me. Again, another great thing to do is put a Marine squad with a small squad with a CQB squad. And there you go, you've got a little platoon mentality. So 3 squads is a platoon, and there you go. Work in a platoon mentality, there's a pro tip from me. But yeah, doing heli rushes is great fun. Quite expensive, of course, but there we go. That's why we have cheaper, higher quantity kind of units. Doing a big Arsov run is actually super effective, especially when you put launchers and stingers on the back of them. I've had a lot of success with it. Again, you can get 2 squads in the back of these guys. So yeah, do the flanky stuff. Flanky stuff really, really pays off, especially if you clear out enemy anti-air defense. That opens up the sky for these guys to, you know, let loose. But there we go. I think this is the new meta. I've been having a lot of fun with this squad. I've been having a lot of success. I will obviously post the battles later so you can see that I'm not just, you know, pulling this all out my arse. This is very effective and it works super duper well. These toes are absolutely clutch for their price. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope to see you on the battlefield, and I hope to see you using this deck and ripping apart Russian forces. You stay classy. Have a good day. Bye bye.